CSS has come a really long way since I started creating websites, but one thing it can't do is turn 5 lines of code into a full grid system just like this. And let's hit save on this and see what it gives us. And you can see there, column 1 is a flex, think of it almost like a width. We're setting a flex grow of 0, flex shrink of 0, and then the flex basis, or if it was the width, it would work just as well. And it sets all of these up. Hi there, my name is Kevin, and here at my channel I teach people how to make the web and how to make it look good while they're at it with weekly tips, tricks, and tutorials. As much as I love where CSS is right now and seeing it mature as a language, I still use Sass for any project that I'm working on, and in this video I'm going to be diving into 5 things I love the most about it. Alrighty, so I am here in VS Code, and one thing that's important is I am assuming you already know how to get Sass up and running and that you're trying to get into it a little bit, so I have linked, if you don't know anything about it, in the description, and there should be a card right here, right now, showing that's linking on how just to get set up and started with Sass. If you have no idea, you can get set up there and then come back. But if you want to see what Sass is about and why I like it, start with this, see if you think this is interesting, and then you can check the link down below if you want to get started with it on how you can get it up and running on your computer. So on this side is my SCSS files or my Sass files, and these will be compiled into CSS over here. So for example, let's say I want to style a card, and I come in, I have my card like this, and then I say something like card, and then I want, I don't know, a padding of 1M, like that. You can see everything looks like normal CSS at this point. But what we can do, and this is where nesting comes in, is you can nest things. So I could say my card, if I have a title on my card, let's say, so card title like this, and I could say font size is 1.5 rem, and hit save, and it outputs this here. So now it's my title that is inside of my card right there. So it makes this compound selector because my title is nested inside right there. So that's kind of cool. You do see some people sometimes, like say you have your nav, and this is where it can be useful. So say you have, it might be your like a nav that has a class of primary nav on it or something. So maybe you have your nav, and then you'll do is in here you have your UL, and on your UL, so here you do like a list style of none, display flex, let's say, display flex, and you're getting your nav UL like that. Now what some people will do is they'll come on this and they'll say LI because my LI is inside my UL, and then on this they'll say like padding 0.25 M, and then they have their links, and their links in their HTML are in there, so they come here and they say A, and then color is black, let's just say black like that. And then you're getting these these compound selectors that are over the top, that are not necessary and not needed. So I would really recommend in these cases not nesting this much. I'm just going to push Alt and down on my keyboard to move that down like that. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this, move it down, or move it up one more there, and hit save. And this is a little bit of a safer way of doing it, because they are all nested in my nav still. But as you can see, it's nav UL, nav LI, nav A. To me, that makes a little bit more sense and is a little bit safer as an approach than having these like super nested things. So with Sass, it is really important to know what's being output and not just blindly going ahead. And if you're not sure, do this, where you have the 2 files next to one another and you're looking at the differences and looking at what's happening, especially while you're learning it. Now going back to this first example, sometimes in the HTML, if you're using like a BEM naming convention, and BEM and Sass play really well together, because you won't have a card title like this. Your card title is usually something like this, card title, right? And if you're doing something like that, or even if it's just card title like this, however you're deciding to name things, you can take advantage of that with the ampersand selector. So first what I'm going to do is just put an ampersand here and hit save, and you can see it just says card again. So whenever you nest an ampersand, it's taking that selector again. So just for fun here, it's nav UL. I'm actually gonna put space and put the ampersand, and you can see it's UL nav. So it's like the backwards, because it's saying UL and then nav over there. So you can get some weird selectors by doing this sometimes. So I can say, but you can do that. So you're getting the one itself, but where is that useful? Well, then here I can do double underscore title and hit save, and it's doing a card title here. And you'll notice it's not even a compound selector in this case, which is really cool and really handy. It's just a single class all on its own, even though it's nested on this side of things. And that's because there's no space here. If I put a space, then it's gonna output it with a space there. But if you have it all stuck together, and you don't need the dot at the beginning, because this already has the dot for a class name on it. So you can get card title. I could come in and say, and body, and do, you know, I don't know, color is red for some reason. And then it's my card body and all those other things. Or as I said, if you're not a fan of BEM and you just want hyphens, well, you can do the same thing with just a hyphen and it works perfectly fine. Another time this could be useful is you have your button, you have, you know, your padding is, I'm just gonna say 1M, not very nice. Color is red, background is pink, display, inline block. And then sometimes what's nice with different things that you're doing is to add spacing to them in certain ways, where you only want margins on all of them except the first one. So you can actually use an and plus and on that. And that if I do an and plus and then say a margin left of 1M, just to have a number here, it's my button plus a button. So that means that any button that follows another button will get a margin left on it. So for something like that, if ever you need that type of thing, you know, just you're writing a little bit less code. The one thing is I will caution against one thing with nesting is there are some people who really don't like it, because if you're searching for class names amongst files, so you open up the folder and then you're doing a control shift F and you're searching throughout the entire project and you're searching for card body or card title, it doesn't show up because you just have an ampersand title here. And you might have an ampersand title for 10 different elements or 10 different components on your page. So it does make searchability a little bit harder. And there's some people who don't like it. Some people don't even like this type of thing. So a bit of a word of caution. But I am a fan of nesting. I think that if you use it responsibly, it can just save you some code. And sometimes things like this might be a little bit too abstract and a bit hard to tell what's going on. But for things like this, I do personally like it. But if you don't like that, or if you are working on a big project with a huge team and this does make things harder to maintain, there can be reasons not to use it. It depends on the situation and on the project. Now, there's one other thing with nesting that for me with Sass, I love it so much. I love it so much. And that is, say on this card, I want a media query where the padding increases at larger screen sizes. Normally, then you'd have to come here, do your at media, and then set the whole thing up, and then inside there, select your card again. No longer. So in here, what I can say, we're gonna do my at media, and here, let's just say a min width of, 45M, just to have a number in there. And then I don't have to reselect something because I'm nested within my card. So I can just say padding is now 2M. And even though it's nested here, it's outputting it the right way around here. So I have my card, open, close, card title, open, close, body, open, close, then my media query, and then it's putting the card inside of there for me. I know some people are very particular with how they like having their media queries. They like having everything at the end and a bit more organized. For me, this makes it so much easier to find. I like all the styling for my card in one place. So having the media query with my card here makes a lot of sense. There are also tools you can use for post-processing. Sass is a pre-processor. There are post-processing tools that can actually take, if you have 100 different media or separate media queries that are all using the same breakpoint, it'll combine them all for you after the fact. So this is like before going to production. So if you like that idea for production, so you're eliminating repeated code, but for your dev environment, everything is in one place. For me, that is just so amazing. So yeah, I love this so very much. And speaking of media queries, another thing that Sass is really good with is Mixins. So what I'm going to do is I've already set these up ahead. I'm just going to paste it in. And here, let's say I have breakpoints and small, medium, and why don't we make a large one as well, just so we can have more, more than just two. So this is called a map. This is a Sass map. It's a little bit like an array, right? Where you're just listing off things, or nested array even. And what I can do here large, let's just say it's, 90M or something like that. So we have different breakpoints that we want to have for our project. Now, to be able to use these, there's a few different ways. If you set this up with each one being its own variable, an independent variable, you could actually just reference it down here. So if I had in Sass a variable is something that looks like this, or it looks like breakpoints there. So let's just start with this, br small, and br small is 45 rem. So what I could do is I could actually just come here and write br small. So you could have them all listed. You can see it's still working. And if I change this number here to 40, 40, hit save, 40 rem, I should say, or m, whatever we want. There we go. And it's updating over here. And you can see that whatever number I put here, and you can imagine you have 100 different media queries all using the same breakpoint, then you update here and all of them update at once. It's wonderful. It makes life so much easier. And this is something you can't actually do with custom properties. So that's already really nice. You could just do breakpoint small, breakpoint medium, breakpoint large if you wanted to. But one advantage of putting them in a map like this is we can create a special mixin. So a mixin is something where you start by writing @mixin, and then I'm going to say MQ for media query. And you don't have to do anything. So you could just have MQ like this, and then I'll show you what this would do first. So then in here, I'm going to write my media query @media, just like you normally would. Min width of, I'm just going to put 100 pixels now so we can see that it's different than what we had so far. And then here, I'm just going to write color is red, just for fun. It's something really silly here. What this is saying is if I use my media query anywhere, it's going to give me a media query min width 100 pixels, and it's going to set a color of red. So let's delete what I had here and hit save, and it's gone. And then what I could do is I could come right here and I could say @include MQ, just like that, and hit save. And now it's bringing in that media query for my card because it's nested inside of the card, and it has the width of 100, and it's setting my color of red. Now I don't know why I would do that. As I said, this is a silly example. This could be used for all sorts of different things. This is just like a really abstract example that you wouldn't use. But what you could do is now we could actually say that here is the size. So if I write size here, just do it. We'll put size like that. And then what I'm going to do is come here and write size and hit save. And this all of a sudden becomes a little bit more robust. Because if I come here and I write something like, let's try 400 pixels and hit save, you can see it's 400. And then I do it again with 500 and it updates to 500. So I can control the size without writing a whole media query out. I'm just writing MQ, except right now there's a limitation to what I'm doing. The limitation being it's always just outputting color red. I don't want it to do that. I want to be able to change what it does every time I use it. So for that, we can just say @content. So now what I do is, this is actually doing nothing right now, but what I can do is I can actually come inside there like this, and now we can go back to what we had before where we had the padding of 2rem. I think it was 2m, but whatever, 2m like that. So I'm setting my size and I'm saying what I want my padding to be. So 2m like that. And then maybe here on my button, we could use it again. @include MQ. Let's say we do it as this time, instead of 500 pixels, 1000 pixels, and we say that this is the color changes to black. Color becomes black. And then so in this one, my media query is coming in, it's doing the card to padding 2, here the color is changing to black. So you can already see how you're writing less code, you don't have to set up the media query each time, but where it really becomes useful is if this size is actually able to reference what we have here with my breakpoints. Now this is a little bit weird. It is using a built-in Sass function, and to be able to use it, I actually have to come up to here and do a little thing here where it's going to be use Sass map like that, because we're accessing Sass maps. To be able to access and go into a map, I need to put that. So what we're going to do here in my media query is right at the top, we can say that my size is a map get of breakpoints. I'm going to put key, and I'm actually going to change this here to say key. And then what I can do when I want to use it, don't forget the semicolon at the end. And then if I want to be able to use this, what I do is I'm putting in a value here. So this value is going into my map. It's going to take this, it's going to look for one of these. So it's the breakpoint, so it's going into my map of breakpoints, and then it's looking for a key. Is it looking for small, medium, or large? And then it's going to take whatever this is and make that the size. This is a little bit like, if you know JavaScript, this probably looks a little bit familiar. Maybe not super familiar, but it'll look a little bit familiar. And so what I would do here now is I can write small. And down here as well, I'm going to write small and 40M and 40M, just like that. And if I update this one to say medium, it updates to 65. Or if let's go back to small, so they're both set to my small breakpoint, and I can come up over to here and I can change this one to 35M and hit save, and both of them have updated to 35M. I love this so very much. I find this super useful. This is one of the Mixins I use every single project I ever do, just because it makes my life a little bit easier. I don't have to remember individual numbers that I've been using throughout my entire site. I don't have to write out the whole media query every time. And because of nesting, I can nest my media query inside of my element and keep more organized that way. So for partials, I'm going to go really fast on this one, just because this is a different document now that I'm working on. This is my personal site that I've been doing some work in. And what I like about partials is being able to organize my CSS a lot more. So instead of everything just being scattered everywhere, you're seeing on what we were just working on, there was bits and pieces everywhere. It was abstract examples, but everything was just sort of split up and all over the place. But here what I can do is I can have something that is literally just to be setting up my color utilities. I can have something else like each component can have its own file. If I go into my layouts, each main part of my layout, a section, my header, like different things here can have their own sections within here, which just make my life a lot easier. I know what I'm looking for. I can stay a bit more organized with everything. Because one thing people always tell me is that they're having a lot of trouble staying organized with their CSS, and the files are all over the place. Well, now I can have individual folders, all these little files, each little element or each component can have its own file, makes it easier for me to find. If I need to get to something, Command P, typography, and then I'm in my typography file and all my typography stuff is here. I go, actually, I forgot, I need something for one of my other layouts, and I push Command P and I need to work on my header. So I can just jump on over to my header and all my header stuff is here. So I can just jump around and do different things really easily. I need to update my colors. I just write colors here, it goes over to my colors, and I can make updates to my colors nice and easily and quickly. And it just makes it so I can break everything apart. And these are partial files. You'll see there's an underscore in front of all of them, which means they won't get compiled. But then I can pull them all into one place and have them spit out at the end as one big file, which would be one CSS file instead of lots of little files. So it reduces the HTTP requests. It's not like you have all these CSS files that need to be loaded in. And it, for me, makes it a lot easier to be organized. I'm not going to go any further into like setting them up and all of that because I have a video dedicated just to that. So if you want to check that out, there's a card popping up right now that dives into that. All right, one of my very favorite things with Sass also, there's things called functions within Sass, and they're part of the module system. You can create your own functions when you want to get really advanced, and that's also really cool, the fact that you can make your own functions. But there's a lot of built-in functions that do really amazing things. We used one just before with my map get, but another one, and this is my favorite one, is instead, say you have a color that you're using a lot. But you want it to be an RGB because you need it to be transparent. And know if you have like black, it's easy, right? RGBA, you just do a 0, 0, 0, and then you choose your alpha values like 0.2, hit save, and you get your transparent black coming in. What if you have a color that you're using? Like, I don't know, you have a hex code of AB4C4A, for example, and it's this brown color that you have, and you need that to be transparent. Well, then you have to go and find somewhere else to do it. You get like a color picker, play with the value, find out what the RGB is. That's kind of annoying, right? What you can actually do with Sass is if you do an RGBA, well, this is part of CSS. This is actually now a Sass function as well. So I can actually put a hex code right here and then just put comma, 0.1, hit save, and it spits it out as an RGB and puts the transparency on there. So do that and it works perfectly fine. I could even come in here and use color values if I want. I can put red and it does it for me. Purple, whatever color you want. Purple, you can even put any value you want. You could do this with HSLA as well and it would also work. But you don't need to find a way to switch it to something else. You can just use it, whatever color you have, whether it's a hex code, when it's a hex code or color value. And I just love that. A, B, C, hit save, and it figures it out for me. So wonderful. They also have other things that you can do here. So if I have a color and let's just say I have a red that needs to be lighter, I can actually do a mix and you can mix two colors together. So I can say mix red, comma, blue and hit save. And that's spitting out purple because it's mixing the two together. Or I can actually say then 10%. Just like this and hit save. And it's going to do, there we go. It's closer to blue because it's saying 10% red and then the rest is blue, so 90% blue. I could move that to 50%, so it'd be purple. And then I could move it to 70% and it's going to start going more toward red. Now this might not be the most practical thing in the world, but what you could actually do, and I like doing this where you're mixing colors with white. So you're pushing things more towards white, or if you're doing it with a black, you can be mixing it more with black to darken your colors. They also do have a lighten and darken function, but it's really easy to hit like pure black or pure white. I prefer the mix one just for, if you get to 100% white, it's pure white. But if you're at 90% white, or not, 10 would be 90% white. Then it's like almost white. There's a little like touch of pink in there, and then 20, 30. So you can make like a nice scale like this if you need to lighten or darken colors. And again, if you want to darken, you just do it not with dark, with black instead. And then say 50% and, you know, maroon and so forth and so on. Now they do have a new part of their color module, which is called adjust, which gives you actually control of a lot of the different stuff that is part of a color. For me, it's a little bit overwhelming. I haven't got my mind around it yet. But if you want to check it out, just check their documentation and look up the color adjust. Has the ultimate control on your color. Just there's so many variables at play that I find it a little bit much. A lot of the time for me, the mix to white and black does what I need it to. We're going to delete everything that we have here right now because I don't want it to clutter up what's going on. And we're actually going to look at a file as this is going on because we're going to do that grid system that I just looked at. And this is using loops, and those loops that are just so amazing. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to let's start with an @4. And this is something I actually did in a video a long time ago using the regular Sass syntax instead of the SCSS syntax. If you don't know the difference, you can check the card that's right there where I look at a difference between the two of them. But for this one, I'm going to take what I did in that older video, but I'm going to step it up and add a media query to it because that was something I got asked a lot about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with an and if or an for I, and if you're used to JavaScript, you might be familiar with stuff like this. And we're going to do from 1 through 12, and we're going to step this up. This won't be the finished version of it, but we're going to start here. And then I'm going to do .call. And now for this, we need to use something called interpolation, which if you're not used to it, if you don't know what that means, we're doing a loop here. So we're going to go through, or it's going to make sense. You'll see what it is, and I'll explain why we had to interpolate here when we get there. So I want to do that. And for that, what I want to do is set a flex. I'm going to set a 0, 0, because I want a flex grow and a flex shrink of 0. They're going to be set to a very specific size, and growing and shrinking in this case, we won't need them. And what we'll do is then here in brackets, I'm going to say 100%. But I don't actually want it to be 100%. I want it to be a very predefined size. So we can do math in here. So then what I'm going to do is divide by, but in here we need something else. We don't actually need all these parentheses. I just find it makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to do 12 divided by I, $i. And let's hit save on this and see what it gives us. And you can see there, column 1 is a flex, think of it almost like a width. We're just setting a flex grow of 0, flex shrink of 0, and then the flex basis, or if it was the width, it would work just as well. And it sets all of these up. And what I've done is I've actually set up something here where we have a row with all of these columns that are there right now. Now actually one other thing to get this to work, what I'm going to do is just say here that the .row has a display of flex, because obviously that's important for it, and that we also have a flex wrap of wrap, because that's for this is an important step there as well, just in case you have too much. It's not going to overflow at the side, but it would wrap underneath. And if we go and take a look at what that would generate for us, and I have that running on my local host right here, so I'm just going to bring that over and we can see what that's given us. So a column of 12 right there is my 12 right there. And actually, let's put this on the side and we'll keep this over here, and we can close this for now. Just so we can see what this is outputting is giving us this column system here. So if I switch one of these, just to show you that it's actually working, if I change this 12 to a 10 here and hit save, you can see it is updating live and it's done a 10 there. So all those percentages are making sure that it all works. But we can step this up a little bit along the way because there's a few things here that I think could improve it. So if we come and take a look here, what we could do is instead of looping through 12 and then having to divide by 12, different projects might need different grid systems, right? So what we could do is come in here and say that we could create a variable. So what we could do is create a variable here of columns. And let's say I want 12 columns, I would just do that. And this is a Sass variable. I'm using custom properties much more than Sass variables these days, but for stuff like this, it's perfect. Because then here we can come in with my columns and we can use the same thing right here. Columns divided by I, everything will look exactly the same. Now this will break things a little bit, but I could say that we do a system like an 8-column system instead. Now everything before 8 or over 8, so like the 11, the 12, the 10, the 9 are all broken, but you can see it is working for all these other ones along the way. But just because of how I've set things up, the numbers aren't adding up properly to make a nice balanced grid system. But let's just say down here where I have a 6 and a 6, I could change this to be a 4 and a 4, and they'll actually go next to one another. You know, that would be a 4 there and a 4 there, because it's a total of 8. So they're finishing at the 8. So hopefully that makes sense right there. Let's just undo those changes that I made and come back to here, and we'll go back up to 12, just because that is a common system to be using. What we can also do is this one here, we can give that an offset class as well. So I could say a call offset, and this is very similar to Bootstrap, right? So we need to interpolate this again, and I'll explain all of this a little bit more detail in 1 second. And then for the offset, we just need to say that there's a margin left of 100% divided by, and we just need the same thing that we had here actually. All of this can just be pumped right into there. And hit save, and it's because this is the margin left, we want it to be equal to the size, the actual, like if it's a 6, if it's a column offset 6, it should be equal to whatever this size was anyway, right? It's not working because I forgot my $sign there, so this, whoops, $I, there we go, and you can see it's offset it by 6. So if I come in here now, I could offset this by 1, hit save, and it's pushed it over by 1 unit on my scale. I can make it a 4, hit save, and it's offsetting it by 4 units. Because this one is a 4, so I should put 4 there. So you can see it's offset this by 4 units, etc. So it all builds out quite nicely there. So then what we could do is actually come in here with a media query. Actually, to make this into a media query, what I would really want to do is come here and just say that all of my divs, so you can say this, so any div that has a class that starts with call hyphen, so that would be 1 through 12 through 200 if you had all of those. And you could say that the flex basis is 100%, just to make sure that they're all the full size. Flex basis of 100%, so they'll be full size. And then this could actually be wrapped in a media query. And I'm going to do it the long way because I deleted my mixin, but if you had your mixin still, you could just use your mixin to do it. And we'll just say a min width of, say, I don't know, 960 pixels, just to have a number in there. And so if I come in here and I open up the responsive mode, you can see there they're stacking. They're all on top of each other. And then when they get to that width, oh, we break, and then all of a sudden we have our column system right there. So a nice way, you know, this is just one type of loop that you could build that could be super useful for one of your projects if you're building something out that is a bit more custom, and you could take this and reuse it and switch your column system here and have it used in multiple projects if it's something that would be interesting. If it's something that you would need, you could even come in here, if you're willing to push things, you could come in with 2 different systems. One could add in spacing on them, or you can use its Flexbox. We have the gap property now. If you want to take advantage of that, browser support's not perfect yet, but it is something that you could explore as well if you want some spacing, or you could use padding. There's different ways to approach that, but this could get you started on creating your own grid system if you don't want to rely on other things that you were using previously. As I said earlier in the video, one of the things that people struggle with the most is getting their CSS organized, and I just showed a quick example of partials in this video. If you'd like to learn more about getting organized with partials, check out this video that is right here, or go check down below for links to some of my other Sass content. Thanks so much for watching. A huge thank you to Zach for being my enabler of awesome, and all my patrons for their generous support. And until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.